All right, welcome back to the channel. So Errol Spence Jr. joins pretty much everybody in boxing by blasting the WBC for this corrupt decision that they have made related to Oscar Valdez. Let's talk about it in this video. All right, welcome back, man. I'm telling you, something really does need to happen in boxing, because it is obviously it's like every other week something is coming out, something is happening that makes boxing look bad, makes boxing look crooked. Either it's a bad decision here, a bad decision by a judge, or, somebody tampering with gloves and making an excuses and saying, hey, it can never happen. But what the WBC has done with Oscar Valdez is just so blatantly in the face of everybody that it is something that absolutely should be acted upon. And I think it should be acted on to the point of the WBC not being allowed to sanction fights in the United States. And it's obvious that these guys really have, they're absolutely just putting money in front of the safety of fighters. But let's get into it in this video and what Errol Spence Jr. had to say about it, because what he brought was, I think he implied a racial aspect of it, which was when he said, yeah, let that be me out there getting 10. Now, he said, let that be me. I'll complete the rest of the sentence. Yeah, let that be a black fighter out there testing positive for a performance-enhancing drug that in a VADA test that is prohibited by VADA, and have the WBC come in and say, no, we're just going to ignore that. We're going to go by somebody else's standard and let him slide, because, there's all kind of stuff out there in the market that could be a performance-enhancing drug. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that it keeps coming out of people associated with Eddie Reynoso and Canelo Alvarez's camp absolutely cannot be ignored. And it can't be ignored to the point where somebody needs to do something about the WBC, period. Similar to what's happening with and I'm telling you, I believe the people to do that are the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions, because when they came in and told the WBA, look, if you do not get your act together, we're not going to allow you to sanction fights in the United States. They got their act together, or started to get their act together quickly, which, getting rid of 51 of the titles, 51 of the, the titles that they had. If the ABC came in and said that, that the WBC, violating your own rules, that they would throw them out for doing this. I mean, it would be it would be just such a correct thing to do, because, right now what these guys are doing is that well, first of all, they're risking the lives of fighters, and through blatant favoritism. This guy, Oscar Valdez, actually has to go in and fight somebody else for this fight, and that guy knows that Oscar Valdez is under the performance-enhancing drugs. Anybody that watches the Oscar Valdez fight that comes up on ESPN will know that Oscar Valdez tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs coming into the fight. What does that say and tell other fighters that are coming up about what they should do? Obviously, they need to get on steroids. They need to get on, find, the loopholes in the performance-enhancing drugs, so that they can get, so that they can be on par with a fighter like Oscar Valdez, who is allowed to do this. The same thing happened with Canelo Alvarez when Canelo Alvarez tested positive for Cumbuterol, and the WBC lowered the acceptable amount of Cumbuterol to below the threshold that he was taking. This is just blatant and positive. This is just out in open crookedness. I mean, it's understandable just for there to be crookedness in boxing and things that people are trying to slip through the cracks, right? Like, and that people are on steroids and there's some issue with, the testing not being able to catch them. That's one thing where you have like really advanced techniques, and you're always staying a step ahead or two steps ahead of the testers. But when you have the sanctioning body, when they actually catch the guy, and you have a sanctioning body come in there and forgive them, I mean, what's the use? And you actually have an article that is written that came out on CBS today that said, look, this proves that the sport of boxing's whole steroid performance-enhancing drug programs are just for show. So you're losing the respect of boxing's already losing respect of a lot of people, because because of what they say are crooked decisions and all that. But to have a sanctioning body just stand out there in the middle of the stage and just boldly and the thing that gets me is for Oscar Valdez. I mean, I could understand, or at least I can understand more if this was Canelo Alvarez or if this was Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather Jr., somebody that had a real big mega fight that, there was a ton of money on the table. But for these guys to do this for Oscar Valdez, it just it doesn't even make sense as far as crooks go, right? I mean, as far as normally, if the guy's a crook, and he's a smart crook and he gets away with it, people can at least be like, well, what can you do? Because it's just they beat the test. But not in this instance. In this instance, somebody gets caught red-handed and you just are going to say, no, I'm sorry, we don't care. The fight goes on. Now, I understand that, there may be financial pressures and things on boxing that may lead somebody to, to really want to have the fight. But, if there's going to be a long-term future for boxing, a legitimate future for boxing, you got to do something about bad actors like the WBC. The WBC also showed this in the way that they handled the situation with Deontay Wilder, when Deontay Wilder pretty much proved beyond a doubt that Tyson Fury had cheated with the loaded gloves and with the gloves flopping all over the place. The WBC refused to do anything about that either. It's like, so what is the purpose of a sanctioning body if what they're doing is they're just sanctioning illegality? If you're just sanctioning illegality because this drug that Oscar Valdez was on, how do I pronounce it? Perfetamine, I can't pronounce the name, but whatever the pronunciation for the stimulant it is, this is a stimulant that allows you to get up in your training and allows you to, get energy where, you might otherwise have been tired. But this is a blatant, and according to Victor Conti, this is something that is a known steroid, is a known performance enhancer. For them just to say, oh, it doesn't enhance it's just not a performance enhancing drug, man, I'm telling you, they need to just be gone away. Now, what Errol Spence Jr. hits on is when he says, let that be me. Now, Errol Spence Jr. saying "let that be me" brings into question whether or not this has a racial component to it, because I've only seen them do this for Mexican fighters, and this is an organization that is out of Mexico. I don't know what kind of internal pressure these guys have, related to, the promoters down there or whatever, like the financial. I know they have a big financial connection to Canelo Alvarez in that camp, because that camp has Canelo Alvarez in it, and he's selling a lot of tickets, and those tickets help pay to keep their lights on. But again, this is Oscar Valdez, and Oscar Valdez is not some big major star, and is definitely not worth doing something like this where you ruin the reputation of boxing and all of the sanctioning bodies over this. I just honestly, it's hard for me to keep track, of just one angle on this conversation, because it's just so outrageous what they've done. And honestly, it's just really time to get rid of the WBC. I don't think for the WBC there's any coming back from this as far as their reputation goes, because it's right out in everybody's face. And it definitely looks like there's a national component to it, because they're defending Mexican fighters. I do believe that they let it took them a while to strip Luis Nery, but anyway, it is what it is. I agree with Errol Spence Jr. If that had been Errol Spence Jr. would have been stripped of his belt, and that would have been it. It would have been the end of the day, and they would have moved on and looked like they were doing better, but like they were enforcing the rules. But for Oscar Valdez, it's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think, and with that, I'm out. Peace.